Hey guys, welcome to another episode of In Your Mind with your host, me, Paul Trudell-Payne. Today, we honestly have one of my sort of work heroes, or industry heroes, I should say. She is a podcast host, an author, a speaker, and one of the owners of WindowWorks. She has really lasted the test of time in this industry. It's been amazing, her career, to see and watch and hear, and you're going to love her, I promise. Her name is LuAnn Nigara, and you are going to want to follow her after the show, so have some fun. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of In Your Mind with me, your host, Paul Trudell-Payne. Today I'm extremely excited to have our next guest on. She is truly a pioneer in the industry of design. She is amazing. If you don't listen to her show, you're going to after today. So please help me in welcoming LuAnn Nigara. How are you? Welcome.
Hi, Paul. Hi, how are you? I'm so excited to be on your show. Thank you.
We're excited to have you. I have listened to your show. I know tons of designers who listen to your show. I mean, I have so many questions. I can't even let them come out. I'm like, oh my God, which one do I start with? But we know which one, right? We know which one we start with because we start the same every episode. Right. So we get to go woo-woo today with you. So I hope you're practicing. So I want to know, tell us a little bit about LuAnn as a child.
So, LuAnn is a child. Okay, so here's the thing. That's one of the things that always comes to my mind when I think about my childhood is how it was an observation I had as an adult that looking back, I was socialized with boys because in my immediate circle, our mothers, my mother, her sister-in-laws, were always close. And this is back in the 60s and the 70s, and families all got together all the time on weekends and so forth like that. And we were usually anywhere 6 to 12 kids hanging out, and the majority of them were boys. But the other thing was I was in the oldest tier of kids. So you had the oldest tier of kids, and then the next kids 2.5 years later, and then the next kids 2.5 years later. So in the oldest tier, I was the only girl. And so looking back, as a kid, I loved it. I just played hard, did everything the boys did. There was no telling me, they wouldn't even dream of telling me you can't play because you're a girl, because I was the oldest of them. You know what I mean? And so now I understandably, physically, they were better at me at a lot of things, but I think inside I never acknowledged that. I just was like, I'm oldest, I'm in charge, we're doing this. And so it was a fun childhood, but it created a competitiveness in me. And it created a competitiveness in me that as a young adult and grown full adult, that I had to recognize at some point wasn't fun for other people all the time. Because when you grow up with that many boys, and you're all friends and you're all cousins and you have safety, think about if you have a sibling. You can fight to the death on something and then say, hey, should we watch the Brady Bunch? And you're like, yeah, let's go do it. And so I had this vision of competitiveness and drive and feeling of it's okay to be competitive, and it's okay to 5 seconds later just be talking about the weather. But that was a big journey for me in my early teens when I would start to be with strangers and they'd be like, okay, we're just playing ping pong. What are you doing?
That's so funny. I love that you said that, because I have never thought about in my family that those tiers, and I have a huge, it's ridiculous, a huge Hispanic family. My mom's one of 11 kids, and some of them have 10 or 11 kids. So,
right, me too. My dad is one of 11. One of my cousins has 11.
Yes, it's so many. And you're so our range too was great. one of my closest cousins, I'm trying to think, were almost 20 years apart. Like, you know, so it's like that range was so there, but we were the opposite. It was every family had one boy, maybe. My family, there's four of us, there's four boys, but all of our cousins were girls.
All girls. Yeah,
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. I have 50 first cousins, and
Yeah.
when I'm talking about in that tier, in that 4 years right around my birthday, like I was the kingpin with those other 4 or 5 boys, and then it was a couple of girls and a couple of boys, and
Wow.
yeah, and so it's funny because my daughter, who's a grown woman now, or 30 years old, she watched Friends for years, and she's like, "You're so Monica," and then also in Modern Family, she's like, "You're Claire," like, it's like, all good and all thing, but like, let's not make a race out of it because. So that's it. And then I took that to schoolwork as well. I was very competitive in school, and there I had to tone down. I wasn't like, an obnoxious kid or anything, but internally I was always very driven to get A's and do my work and be the president of the class and be the captain of this and all of that. So it's a little crazy in the LuAnn head.
You've always been East Coast?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And is it New Jersey?
Yes.
Where you are right now? Yeah.
Yes. Proud Jersey girl.
Right. You should be. I just was at my brother-in-law and sister-in-law now, their wedding, and her family is from New Jersey. I think they live in Boston now, or she does, and her parents live in New York, but they are from New Jersey. And they would every time we get together, they try and prep it. They're like, just so you know, New Jersey's coming. Like, just be ready. I love it.
We say Jersey's in the house.
Yeah. Oh God. Okay. That's good. I love that. I love that competitiveness. I love that you also had to recognize that it had to change. Because I think
I had to tone it
hard.
down. No, I had to tone it down. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Did you find that sort of moment when you were like, cool, I have to tone this down. I need to figure it out. Was it an incident? Was it more because of women? Was it guys? I can see both sides,
It actually was. It was a series of situations. I won't tell you, I learned it right away. Yeah. But it was a series of situations. It would be with women. It would be, like I said, it would be sort of like with women, it mostly manifested in conversation because, again, like the same thing, huge family. Like my mom's one of 4, my dad's one of 11, people all over all the time. And you can have a full-blown, when we were kids, our adults would have a full-blown to the death argument with their brothers and sisters over, pea soup and beers. And then 10 minutes later, you walk through the kitchen again and they're hysterical. So for me, I was raised that your passion can come out, your conviction can come out, you can say what you want, and even though you're saying it loudly, you're not saying it with mean or disrespect, and the second you're done making your point, you're done. And with women, I noticed that I would be like, oh no, and then like it was like roadkill. They'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe you would like talk to me like that. I was like, what? I'm just saying my opinion. And so it took a few times for a close friend to be offended and to be like, you just came at me. I'm like, I wasn't coming at you. And they're like, well, it felt like that. And I was like, oh, and so, you have to listen and you realize they're not your cousins. They weren't socialized like you. They don't understand that that's just fun. And because it wasn't fun for them, they felt like, rah. And with men, it became a thing where as I started dating my husband and maybe we would be all together as couples and we were going to play, that game of basketball horse, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because that's like the one basketball game guys and girls can play together, right? And of course I'm going to like fight. And he would like randomly, or somebody else would be like, seriously, do you need to embarrass everybody here? I'm like, I'm sorry, if I got the shot and he didn't, what's embarrassing about that? The next shot he got and I didn't. So it was those learning lessons like, okay, you're not with your people now. You got to back it down.
Oh my God, I love this. When did you decide I'm going to go towards design? When did that happen for you?
No, I never did
Never.
decide that. No, no. So
Yeah.
see, our company Window Works, okay? My husband started the company about a year before I met him, and he owns health clubs. That's where I worked for him. I worked for him at the health club. That's how I met him. I was an exercise instructor, and he was a probation officer in Newark. And his very best friend started Window Works as a franchise in Florida. And there was 10 franchises in Florida, and his friend said, you know, this thing is rocking and rolling. You should open one in New Jersey. So my husband, you know, he was bored because he only had 2 health clubs and a full-time job and 2 other part-time jobs. And so he was like, okay, let me open up in New Jersey. And then when I started dating him, I had, for the first time in my life, been in a position, in a job where I was not selling. I was answering the phones at a law firm in New York City. And it was about 3 months into that job, and I was ready to like stab somebody in the eyeball. Like, I hated it. I was like, I have to get, and I was dating him. I'm like, I have to get out of here. I can't sit. He's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I have to sell something. I'm born to sell. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. And he's like, well, I started this little window treatment company, you know, last year. We're still working it out of my basement. If you want to just work for me for a couple of months until you find something. And, you know, I came in, and a company that was doing $10,000 a month, within 4 or 5 months, I was doing $25,000, $30,000 a month myself. And so we just blew the company up, and, you know, here I am 39 years later selling window treatments.
And I mean, I have to say, it's probably because of the way you grew up. That thing that you had to tone down, you didn't have to in sales.
Yeah. Oh, no, I was born to sell.
Yeah.
But it is a skill there too. You know, you see, and that was the thing. It was also a very much in those beginning years of Window Works, and really having my first truly professional sales position. Before that, I was selling health club sales, and I was selling knives out of my trunk. I mean, I sold everything, you know what I mean? But having to have that professional in-home sale, and I was young, I was 21, 20 years old doing this. That's when it was like, okay, you know how to sell, and you know all the technical stuff, but now you got to get the finesse of it down. You can't just come through the front door and blare it down. You have to take a step back. You have to go slow if people are going slow. You have to talk soft if people are talking soft. You have to not make people uncomfortable in their own home, LuAnn. Okay.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Yeah. And so that was how that happened. So I always say, if I met him and he had a copy machine sales, company, we would have an amazing copy machine company right now.
I believe you. Believe me, I believe you. With this, this is more just a personal question, because I love having a salesperson. That's all I've ever done. I went to school for PR and marketing, did PR for a little bit, and then somehow always just ended up in a sales role. Like, whether I became like an admissions director, and then I did sales for Microsoft and Nordstrom, like bigger companies. And did you find it, because you did it in so many different areas too before, the shift in how you had to approach that industry, right? Because it's different. It's a home. How home is approached versus the gym memberships now, right? Like, how did you find that inside of, like, I can bring out this side of the personality and push that one away, or vice versa?
Well, it really was, first of all, I've read books on sales since I was 10 years old. So yeah, like, this is like Nancy Drew, Og Mandino, Napoleon Hill. You know what I mean? You know, look, young LuAnn is a little nuts, okay? But so the thing is that now I'm in the home selling, and I'm also selling to people that are generally at minimum 10 years, if not 15 and 20 and 30 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And so now I remember distinctly feeling like, oh, okay, this cannot be all gut instinct here. This cannot be all just whatever comes out of your mouth. You've got to sit back and observe this situation. You have got to sit back, and you have to shut your mouth, and you have to listen, because now I was hearing all of that training that I had read for years and years and years, and it was like coming to fruition, and it all melding, and it was like, listen, ask a question, shut up, listen, Find the thing that is their pain point. Find the thing that you can solve for them. Because if you don't stop talking long enough to figure that out, you can't close them. You can't provide the solution and then take a check for that solution. And so it was a training ground. Again, it was like another step into that. But I love sales. It would be like, you know, somebody that loves to play the piano. If there's a new challenge, a new piece that's harder and takes a lot more dexterity, it's compelling for them to master that. And so for me, it was the same. It was like, oh, wait, let me get my Tony Robbins tapes out. Let me go get my Napoleon Hill. How am I going to do this?
I love that. Like, because that essentially what you did is you found self-awareness, right? That's what that skill is. It's truly being self-aware. I've just recently talked to someone about this, and I always talk to friends about it of like, I don't know, I feel like doing sales first, just like, even if it were retail, whatever it was, that shaped everything else that I did.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was like, that's how I found out this way. That's how I found out this is how I'm perceived, or it's all that self-awareness. Do you find that helped you in other aspects of your life?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Because look, we have a joke in our house. Like when something happens now and it's like a really dramatic thing, or some customer says something on the phone, we're all like, oh, thank God LuAnn's not 40 anymore. LuAnn, she's not 30, because that lady would have gone off the handle. You know what I mean? Like it's just, you just become very clear that you're there to serve that person. If you're there to sell them something, the only way you can do it is if you truly understand what their need is. And you cannot get to that if you're too busy talking, too busy being the amazing salesperson, too busy interested in what you have to say. And so there is that curve. And I'm not going to tell you at 20, I was as good as I am at, my late 50s. You know what I'm saying? Like you get better as time goes by. Hopefully you do, right? But what happens is, for me, in the growth and understanding is there would be times when I would not make a sale. And I always sat and analyzed, like, why didn't I get that sale? What would happen? And then I would start to know, I'd be like, wow, you did a lot of talking in that appointment. Can you really say what was the number one reason why they wanted custom window treatments? And if I couldn't answer that when I came out of a sales appointment, I was like, whoa, lady, next time, shut up.
Yes.
Listen more. So
I love that. I coach and consult in real estate in particular. I have a top 3 things. And first thing that I say is like, you will never sell a house if you don't listen. So if you did not listen, it's not happening. It does not matter what your sales technique is.
And the problem is that salespeople, if they don't take that time to be self-aware, salespeople will complain about the customer. Oh, I've showed this customer 25 houses and they don't want anything. Or I've showed them 50,000 fabrics and they don't want anything. It's like, you haven't heard what they wanted. And maybe the customer doesn't have the straightforward sentence, this is what I want. But you have to ask enough questions and shut your mouth enough to let the information come out.
You guys have been in business now, how many years?
39.
39 years.
Are you even 39 years old, Paul?
Almost. But I love this. I love like that is showing strength and courage, and you can last that long. That's an amazing feat.
And married to my husband, my partner, the whole time.
I mean, that's another show on its own. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
You see, there is a statue somewhere for me on
I am curious to know, because you've gone through this, what we're in now is different than a lot of things, but in a sense of like business-wise, there have been times, right? Business, it went away, and especially home industry, like that suffered. How did you guys maneuver? How did you pivot? And how are you approaching it in this go around, I would say?
Well, it's interesting because I did share in the first book that I wrote, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, how we almost lost our business in the recession in the early 90s, because it was the first time we were in business, maybe just 10 years at that point, and just over whatever. And we really did not react fast enough. And we almost lost the business. I mean, it was the hardest period of my professional life ever, bar none. And because it also lasted for the longest period of time, it wasn't like a hard appointment or a hard day or a hard week. It was like a hard 18 months.
Yeah.
And we have gotten better with each time. So we had that in the early 90s. And then you had, there was another, something, we had 9/11 that we went through, then 2008 we went through. And each time the first lesson was so hard that there was no making that mistake again. But truthfully, even by the 2008 recession, we sailed right through it. And and when I say sailed right through it, I don't mean that we didn't have to lay off. I don't mean that we didn't have to cut expenses. I don't mean that our sales gross revenue didn't suffer. I mean, we were never, ever looking at each other going, oh my God, are we going to survive? Like, that never happened. Whereas the other, it was like, we were saying, should we cancel the Star Ledger delivery? It's 25 cents a day. Like, it was like insane.
Yeah.
So, and the same with COVID. But the thing with COVID is that, when you go through, first of all, there's not a chance to minimize COVID in any respect, because it's not anything we did. We couldn't control it. None of us could. We couldn't just say, well, I'm going to work harder. I'm going to go out today and I'm going to do my job. It's like we have been put in our homes and our businesses have been closed, right? So it's been hard, and there are changes and adjustments that each of us should have made long by the time this conversation is happening. Mm-hmm. But with the PPP there, it's a different story. So if there was no PPP money in a recession if you just mismanage your money. Now, you still have to manage your PPP money properly, and you still have to, we've had a partner meeting every single Saturday for 11 Saturdays in a row, when we normally have them once a month. It's like for 2 and 3 and 4 hours. I mean, so there's no understating trying to get our team of 11 through this. But the combination of our past experiences and understanding right away to make moves and right away not to underestimate it. And then fortunately, with the help of the PPP, it's different in that way.
And you were saying when you first started that the first time, the one thing that you learned going through that first one, you knew I'd never make this mistake again. Was that about being prepared early enough? Like, it's about fast acting.
It was not, my husband and I, and we have a partner too, our cousin Bill, but my husband and I are both salespeople. We are both, the glass is not just half full, it is always over the top. You can smack me in the face. I'll be like, come on, like we're just going to pop back up again. We're like, whatever, And so for us, and our partner Bill is much more conservative, but we're very forceful, and we're more the managing partners to him, right? And so in the first recession we went through, we kept foolishly thinking, naively thinking, that our sense of self-preservation and our sense of we can do this and our sense of optimism was going to have an effect on what was happening. And maybe it does this much, but you've got to cut expenses, and you have to get everything in line, and you have to collect your money, and you have to do concrete business things in order to usher your business through a recession. And by the time we took those concrete steps, it was, like I said, we almost couldn't come back from the brink of it. And thankfully we did. And it is no fun.
I am so appreciative that you say that, because I'm not anti-positive. I'm a huge positive mindset person. I love thinking from a mindset of abundance, and I love all of that. But I also think that there's this culture, I would say, really, of, positive vibes only, and which is a good in its idea. I think maybe different in its practice. And that idea of like, if you think it's okay, that it will always be okay. I believe me, I wish more than anything in the world that's all it took for it to be okay.
Yeah.
But I think people need to hear and remember that it still takes action. Even the people that think of those ideas still will tell you, I took action.
It's
Like,
well, I'm going to tell you. Even I mean, I have to tell you, honest to God, we're completely fine through COVID. We're going to survive, and it's going to be good, and everything else. And we're actually our to share. You know, our gross revenue projection was $3 million going into the year, and then all of a sudden we were doing models based on what if we only reached 1.25, and there was a point where that was totally what was going to happen. And even then, like our partner Bill is like, we have to do this, we have to lay off, we have to do that. And Vinny and I are like, maybe we could wait till next month. And he's looking at us and we're like, you're right. Okay, what if it does just to be 1.25? Like, okay. And like, but if I promise you, if we had not almost lost our business one time, and if we had not pulled it through 2 other times, because in that moment when we were having to make those hard decisions, if we only reached 1.25, we wouldn't have done it. We would have said, give it another month, and another month we would have been out of capital, out of cash, done. You know what I mean? And so it's the lesson.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love the stuff that you're sharing. I am so happy that you can be authentic with it. And I'll tell you, like, going into this industry, which I love, I'm still part of this home industry, but I remember going in and thinking, I'm going to start a team now for real estate. And I'm a planner. And so when I first even wanted to go to real estate, I interviewed 13 offices before I chose the one I would pick. So when I decided to do a team, I went along the West Coast and interviewed team leaders and figured out, well, what are they doing that I like? What are they doing I don't like? So that I could make mine better.
Good
And going through that, I met one person who I still talk to, and Andy Taylor, and he was the one team leader that was 100%, I'm going to let you know, for real. This is the reality. Like, I'm on stage and I teach, which not to say that he's teaching something false, because he's not. He's like, but here's like layer 1. I just don't go into layer 2, 3, 4, and 5. That is maybe where some of that magic happens. And it's so rare. That's what I will say. Like, it's so rare that you find someone that's like, I'll just let you know. And it's something that I'm proud of and I'm happy I do. Like, I will let you know when things are bad, because someone needs to help, or not help, but learn from it so that it helps them.
That's what it is. Because if those of us that are in business, 20, 30, 40 years, even 5, 10, if you only tell the good parts, then when the people that you're sharing with ultimately have a crisis or a huge mistake or whatever they face in their business, then they think they're the only ones that happens to. And it's like, no, this is why I can talk about it, because it happened to me, and I know, and I remember the pain, and I remember the hard lessons, and you can get through it, but here's the pillars for getting through it. Don't miss these. Don't, pass go, and don't not do these parts. But you don't escape. You can't escape anything in this life. You have to go through your lessons. The only thing that you can do is we could have gone through the same pain of that first recession multiple times if we didn't analyze and look back at what we did wrong. You see, then the universe keeps putting that lesson right in front of you, no matter how big or little. But if you take the time, whenever you do fail and whenever you do have a difficult time, if you take the time to just say, what could I do differently if this happened to me again? What, looking back with my hindsight knowledge now, with that benefit of that experience, what would I do differently? What should I do differently? And then just commit to the next time when you see that road, you're like, oh, I remember that road, and I have to do this time.
Oh, that's perfect. I mean, I could not have even imagined to try and write that better, what you just said. It is truly what people need to listen to. And it's actually the perfect transition to, I hate to say it, but our final. So this one, I love it because it's like we're looking at reflection, we're looking at things that we learned about, and I end it the same with everybody. If that little girl that grew up with all those boys that learned how to be competitive were here today, what would you want to tell her?
Um, I would tell her that your time will come, that everything comes when it's supposed to come. And that's a thing that my younger self had a hard time with. It was like, oh, I'm 20, I should have done this by now. I'm 30, I should have achieved this by this. I'm 40, I should have achieved this by that. I'm 50, how am I ever going to make this happen? And so I think it's funny because I get very literal about this, because part of me feels like maybe I would tell that little girl, but maybe that would take some of her hunger away. But if she was nervous, I would say, your time comes and everything you're doing on the way, all is going to be part of what is ultimately what you're meant to do. And all of it is going to inform it. And you're going to be grateful that it didn't come until the time it came.
I cannot tell you how happy it makes me that that was your lesson. I have been working on this TED Talk and this book, and was like, here are the lessons I've learned, because I have so many more to learn and I don't know them. And in the end, I said, like, actually, I'm 35, and it's been one. I've learned one lesson. And that one lesson was that my time, I literally just was talking about this, is that my time's going to come. Like, that's what I would want to tell that little kid, is that you just have to wait, and it's hard, and this happens, but it still comes. So LuAnn, I can't thank you enough, honestly, for joining me and being here and sharing all of that. It's like, it was one of my favorite things, honestly, that's happened in a long time. So thank you for this.
Thank you so much. I so much enjoyed talking with you. What an honor to be on your show. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. And before you say bye, I do want to say, how should our viewers, listeners, however they're coming in, how do they get a hold of you or stay in touch or follow?
Sure. So the podcast is called A Well-Designed Business, and we talk business for interior designers and creatives. And then on my website, LuAnnNigara.com, you can access the podcast, you can access the books, you can access, coaching if that's what you want. And the email is info@LuAnnNigara.com.
Perfect. We're going to link everything in the comments below. And again, thank you so much. Highlight of my week. Seriously, thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, it's so sweet. Thank you.
Okay, have a good one, and we'll see you guys next week. Hey guys, thanks again for checking out another episode of In Your Mind with me, Paul Trudeau-Payne. I hope you got so much info. LuAnn really, really shared some key elements to, I think, handling what we are all going through today. So thank you so much, LuAnn, for being here. And you guys remember, we are here every Wednesday, so make sure to tune in next week. And don't forget, like, subscribe, follow, share. Everything you do always helps, but we will see you next week.